We like to think the formula is simple. Just turn Roman Reigns heel for a bit. Please. It worked for The Rock, who you're so bloody keen to link him to. A heel run would allow Reigns to tap into his natural smugness, feed off the real crowd dynamic, and just makes fucking sense. Getting over often is simple. Fans like to see more of the wrestlers they like. It's a business fundamental to which pro wrestling isn't immune, even if, all too often, Vince McMahon is the vinciest of Vinces. But McMahon doesn't rule the wrestling world because he's an idiot. He sees things that we don't, and not just Jinder Mahal's non-existent star potential. With that in mind, I'm Adam Wilborn from What Culture, and these are 10 wrestlers you can't believe got over. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to stay notified. Ding, ding, done. Number 10, Authors of Pain. In 2018, the true heels are those who fail to deliver a good match. Oh, hi Tamina, fancy seeing you here. The Authors of Pain, inexperienced and dangerous, were such failures in 2016 that they generated a type of heat worse than X-Pac circa 2001. They were already fighting a losing battle as the unwanted heirs to the throne of the Road Warriors, and ruining that awesome NXT division was enough to doom them in the eyes of the fandom. Until they just about hung in there with DIY in a spate of minor classics. They are now incredibly, genuinely over, and they're almost there as pseudo babyfaces. And all it took was a next level carry job by DIY. Thanks, guys. Number 9, Bayley. At the Manchester Raw tapings last year, the UK fans loudly and in unison kept Bayley and DJ Otzi in their hearts, travelling 2 years back in time to 2015, before Bayley was chewed up and spat out by the clueless main roster creative regime. Stop doing This Is Your Life segments, WWE. The Bayley character shouldn't work on paper so many years after the cool heel trope became the norm. Here is this grinning superfan turned pro wrestler, absolutely unashamed in a happy to be here state of innocence, flanked by wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube men, for Christ's sake. White meat baby faces don't work anymore, we were told, but Bayley was so bloody likeable that she captured the inner child of even the most hardened adult males. Here's what mine looks like, by the way. That reaction in Manchester proved that Bayley is a star, not a fad, and it's actually harder to believe that WWE ruined a talent with such stupendously simple story beats to follow. Number 8, the Bougie Man. The Bougie Man was a dire professional wrestler because he was barely trained as a professional wrestler. Higher up spotted his potential as a character because Bougie was legitimately insane, sent him to developmental, and basically instructed Jim Cornette to train him to a level one notch above utter liability. What got Bougie Man over, against all logic, was his deeply convincing and disturbing portrayal. Bougie Man entered the arena with unpredictable, herky-jerky voodoo movements, looking positively possessed, a state of mind reflected in his crazed eyes. Oh, and the whole worms thing too. When he ate Gillian Hall's facial mole, yep, it wasn't a weird dream you have, it was a fitting visual metaphor for the character's success. He was fed pure nonsense, but somehow made it work. Fans and officials alike were taken by this theoretical abomination, so much so that Vince McMahon allegedly impersonated him backstage. And that's the mental image that stops me getting to sleep tonight. Number 7, The Godfather. In many ways, the Madonna of wrestling, Charles Wright reinvented himself on several occasions to varying success. You had Papa Shango, an MMA fighter who became a black militant, and let's not forget, a pimp. The Godfather was always flanked by his harem of hoes, and whilst the crude sexism of the act was definitely not an issue by the standards of the time, you suspect that even if it was, Godfather possessed enough charm and charisma to excuse it all. Who is gonna boo a train of hot chicks, was the rhetorical question posed by Dean Ambrose on Godfather's Hall of Fame induction vignette. And yeah, that's probably the reason he was so over. Fair point. Number 6. Sable. As the WWF's answer to Pamela Anderson, she was always going to receive pops, of an often literal nature, by the new teenage crowd drawn to the WWF's Attitude Era ethos. But rewatch her WrestleMania 14 match alongside Mark Mero, and you'll notice that there's an actual performer underneath the eye candy facade. Her offense was the obviously. Please don't hurt me, Mr. Lesnar. But she had much in the way of genuine babyface fire. She stared a hole through Luna. The real-life hatred probably helped. And when she finally got her hands on and slapped the piss out of her, the crowd went bananas.
And people say she's just a big pair of tits.
Number 5. The Big Boss Man. The Big Boss Man shattered a certain narrative surrounding the WWF's golden age. He should not have got over to the extent that he did, but his Southern Justice spiel dripped with pure heart. An even better heel, shattering also the narrative that the best wrestlers are natural extensions of themselves, Boss Man, known as a sweetheart in industry circles, was a complete bastard in the Attitude Era. A dog-killing, coffin-dragging prick. We've all got that one, mate. Boss Man also completed the hat-trick by shattering the notion that occupational gimmicks are automatically dumb, something which had been set in stone by all of these bellends. As a legitimate former corrections officer, he was able to play the role with as much gravitas as conviction. Number 4. Brodus Clay. Somebody call my mama! Seriously though, can someone speak to her? I didn't let her know I got home safe and, she worries. Anyway, Brodus Clay invented the Hall of Pain, which was to be referenced as he steamrolled his way through the competition on arrival. It was genius. Then Creative gave it to Mark Henry and told Clay he was going to play the role of a disco-dancing dinosaur. It felt like a rib. It shouldn't have worked, and it didn't long-term, but for a few gloriously camp weeks, Clay was something of a one-hit wonder, delighting crowds with his barely-there dancing skills and ad-lib bits of crowd interaction. We wrestling fans do let a lot of slide, don't we? Number 3. Hardcore Holly. Bruce Pritchard, aka Brother Love, aka the only man who can come close to Brock Lesnar's skin color, tells a phenomenal story about Bob Holly in his podcast. In the collaborative environment of the Attitude Era, up stepped Hardcore Holly and his big sales pitch. Hey, I've got an idea. Why don't you give me the belt?
Why?
Then I'd beat everybody, insisted Captain Smiles. It's this bull-headed certainty that has secured his unlikely status as an enduring fan favourite. Hardcore Holly, over time, became such a believable hard man that Attitude Era fans were practically moved into a reaction out of sheer fear. Threatening to break that little head Michael Cole's ass in half almost certainly helped too. Number 2. Steve Blackman. Steve Blackman was, in a word, generic. His gimmick, loosely, was of a martial artist. The nunchucks were a bit of a giveaway, to be fair. He wasn't a great talker, possessed little in the way of charisma, and didn't have the technical flair to keep up with the post-radicals crowd. What Blackman did possess, in addition to his tribal drumbeat of an awesome entrance theme, 90s, was credibility and looking profoundly capable of beating the out of you. Suspension of disbelief is the prerequisite for wrestling success, and in the absence of any other marketable characteristic, Blackman made it his stock in trade. He was, to use a more appropriate word, a badass. Number 1. Shane McMahon. Shane worked in the Attitude Era. As a heel, he was a slimy, silver spoon-fed spoilt brat whose lunatic bumps were grand reckonings. As a face, he had the good grace to wrestle as if he wasn't a wrestler, because he wasn't. Stop jumping off stuff, you mad bastard! His portrayal nowadays is a betrayal of fiction. He can trade strikes with The Undertaker, chain wrestle with AJ Styles, and violently brawl with Kevin Owens. Bullshit. As much as I hate to admit it, the sweatiest man in WWE is very over. Fans seem to overlook the plot holes and the nepotism, but why? Here's why. Not now, Simon! Is the nostalgic elixir of the Attitude Era that powerful? Do match structures mean that little in comparison to the ego trip stunt shows? Is Stephanie McMahon that despised that Shane becomes the lesser of two evils by default? Yeah, probably.
Oh, wasn't that something? Don't forget to like, share and subscribe below, and also the people who made this lovely video, they're appearing right here. But if you're thinking to yourself, I want to see more content, Jules, then why not look above my head, as there probably is some. I don't know. I can't see it. Until next time.